Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to be looking at a pretty advanced topic, and that is variables. Okay, so what are variables? Well, if you've taken any like fifth grade math course, or if you've taken like pre-algebra, which I assume you haven't, variables are just basically placeholders for values. Okay, think about it like this. We have a value called x, right? Not the x coordinate, but just a variable called x. X doesn't equal anything, right? It's just a placeholder for a value. We can make x equal to a number, like 3 or 5. We can make x equal to a word, like happy or sad. We can make x equal to a statement, like true or false, right? And these placeholders can change over time. We can set their values, we can change their values, we can do a lot of things with these values. We can also make it so that variables are associated with only one sprite. We don't have to make it global, right? What global means is that every sprite can access a variable. Let's say that, for example, we want to see how far the giga walks, right? The giga is this little thing right here. Then we can just store that in a variable for just the giga. We don't have to make a global variable, okay? So all these concepts I will be explaining in this short project video where we'll be making a catch the apple game. Okay, so for now this is how the code looks like. Okay, so we have the giga and you've already seen this moving our character, right? Start, we can move our character. When you click on the apple, it moves to a random position. The code for that is right here. When start is clicked, forever, so we're checking for a condition, right? If the apple is touching the giga, then the apple will go to a random x and y position, y coordinate from negative 200 to 200, which is around the boundary of the screen. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Make sure you wrap your head around that. Now, what's the next thing that comes in mind when you're making a game like this? You probably want to keep track of the number of apples the Giga has catched. Well, we can do that. First, we have to go to our variable section right here, and you have to click make a variable. Okay, and then we want to make this variable for all sprites because we want the giga to be able to access this variable, and you'll see why. And we also need the apple to access this variable as well. If only the giga had to access this variable, we'd only make it for this sprite only. And let's call this score. Okay, as you can see, we have a variable called score. What the check mark is do you want it to be displayed or not? Do you want it to be like a background process, like within the code, or do you want it to actually be displayed when you're playing the game? I do want to display the score. Okay, so now let's stop this. What are we going to do now? Okay, every time the apple is hit, we have to increase the score. So where would we change our score? Obviously, we're using change score, right? Why don't we use change score right here? If touching giga, when it goes to a random position, we can change our variable by 1. Score by 1. This increases score by 1. If we wanted to decrease score, we would do negative 1, like that. Okay, so let's take a look. So moving around. Oh, 1, 2. Where did the apple go? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's cool. But what else can we do with this? Well, like I said, I wanted this score variable to be a global variable because I want the giga to access it too. The reason why is because I also want to keep track of the giga's emotions. Okay, now this is kind of weird in a game like this, but I just want to show you that variables don't only have to store numbers; they can also store words. Okay, so right here, I'm also going to make another if condition. Sorry. So at the start, oh, oops, that's weird. Let me take that out, put that in, put that in. Cool. Okay, and now we're going to check if, so let's take score, right? We'll also have to use an operator. if the score is greater than 10, we're gonna make the Giga happy. So let's make a new variable. Let's call it mood. And the mood is only going to be for the Giga because the Apple doesn't need to know the mood. Okay. Then we're going to set mood to happy. Okay. Okay. But what is it before happy? We also have to set the variable at the very beginning. We have to set the variable equal to sad because it has no apples. Right. So now let's try it. Or we're at 8, we're at 9, we're at 10, and once you get to 11, we are happy. Now you might have noticed something. When we started the game, the score never changed back to 0. Well, that's because we have to also do the same thing with Apple. We have to make the score, we have to set the score when start is clicked equal to 0. So now let's stop the game, start it again. Stop, start, yeah, like that. And now you can play the game. And let's get all these apples, let's make the Giga happy. Nice, it's happy. Okay, now this is not all. Okay, this is where it gets truly a bit confusing, but hopefully you'll be able to understand when I give you an example. We can also make a list. Okay, now what will the list store? In this example, I'm going to say that the list will store will store the coordinates of the apple each time it teleports. Okay, so we'll make a list, and this is only for the apple, right? Or sorry, I'm in the Giga right now, right? So make a list. This is only for the apple. So we're gonna call this coordinates. Okay. For those of you who don't know what coordinates are, they're basically x and y, right? They're a pair of x and y. Okay. So right now we have this right here. Okay, I'm gonna display for now, but usually in a game you wouldn't display this list, but I just want to show you, right? Okay. So right now we have this huge list. We have a lot of things. Okay, we can add an element to coordinates. We can delete an element. We can delete all of the coordinates. We have a lot of things right here. We won't get into all of that. We'll just get into some of them. Okay, for example, every time the apple teleports, I want to keep track of its coordinates. Okay, so we also have to make another variable. We have to make two variables, in fact, for this part only. Apple X and Apple Y. Okay, and we don't want these to be displayed, right? And now, instead of go to X and then use this random block right here, we're just gonna say set Apple X, set Apple X to this, and set Apple Y to this, and then go to Apple X, Apple Y. So this is a nice way of using Apple X and Y lots of times, right? Because not only do we go to that position, we can also now add this to our coordinates. Okay, so let's add this. Add. Let's just say we want the X coordinate. Okay, adding the X and Y coordinate is a bit complicated, so let's just say we're going to add the X coordinate. Yes, just the X coordinate. So let's rename this to X chords. Okay, so these are our X chords. So let's see if this works. Stop, start, and we also have to make sure that we delete all of X chords at the beginning, right? Start. Now let's give a sad. We have one X coordinate. Sorry, the apple was covered, right? We have two X coordinates, three X coordinates, four X coordinates. And you can see we keep on getting the X coordinate of our apple. So this list is pretty cool if you want to keep track of values and stuff like that. And this is basically it for lists and variables in general, right? You can do a lot of things with them. You can store values and use them throughout your code. If you make the variable available to everyone, it's also a way to, keep track of things throughout your entire game. Let's say you're keeping track of the score. If the score is greater than 10, we want to change the backdrop. We should keep that score in a variable, because then we can check in the backdrop if the score, is 10 or great or less than 10. Variables are really helpful. They might be a tiny bit confusing, but make sure you kind of wrap your head around them. If you understand them, you'll do a lot of great things in your future Scratch projects. After this video, there's only one more skill video left, and then you guys will be working on a bunch of projects. So that's it for this video. I'll see you.